Hey design enthusiasts! Welcome to Next in Line Design, a podcast by the World Design Organization's Young Designers Circle. We're all about embracing a new mindset in design, one that's bold, innovative, and impactful. We're here to connect with the next wave of design talent and explore how you can use your creativity to make a real impact. Get ready for fresh ideas and inspiration from young designers around the world who are reshaping the industry. We're here to spark conversations, inspire change, and explore new ideas in design. But remember, these are just our perspectives on one big, evolving field. Please note that the opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official views of the World Design Organization or its affiliates. Let's dive in and see what's next in line. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Next in Line Design, a podcast created for and by young designers. My name is Alexis Divis, and I'm a young designer originally from Medina, Ohio. I studied industrial design at SCAD in Savannah, Georgia, and now I'm starting my career in the New York City area working in the healthcare industry. For the past year, I've been representing the United States as a member of the World Design Organization's 2023 to 2025 Young Designers Circle, or YDC as we call it around here. I am so excited to be kicking off our Next in Line Design podcast today with two other YDC members and good friends of mine, Adam Heath and Arjit Singh. Adam and Arjit, would you care to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Arjit Singh. I am originally from Delhi, India, but I have been shaped through my study in Auburn, Alabama, and also working and living in Toronto, Canada, where I currently reside. I currently work as a UX designer here in Toronto, and I've also been teaching UX related courses at George Brown College for the past couple of years. And I've been a part of the Young Designer Circle, like Alexis, for the last year or so. And I'm very excited to be here representing our global team.
Yeah, thank you, Arjit and Alexis. My name's Adam Heath. I was born in and bred in Staffordshire, England, where I also attended a university. However, I now find myself living and working on the other side of the world in Sydney, Australia, lovely sunny Sydney, Australia. I'm an industrial designer and I work for a startup in the space industry. And like Alexis and Arjit, I've been lucky enough to be a part of the YDC for this past year. And my role in the YDC has been primarily focused on leading the YDC festival ecosystem, which has been an extraordinary group effort so far, and one I can't wait to talk about a little bit more.
Thank you, gentlemen. So we've said YDC, Young Designer Circle, quite a bit, and that might be a little unfamiliar for our audience. So Arjit, would you care to step in and kind of set the scene and let us know what the YDC is, why it's so cool, why we have such a great time all the time?
For sure. Yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah, established essentially in 2020, the Young Designer Circle is an initiative that is led by the World Design Organization, where essentially they select a group of young designers like us and the rest of us that are essentially all distributed around the world to work on meaningful design projects. And now, of course, in its third iteration, this group will collaborate until 2025. And we're essentially working on a couple of different projects currently on the design festival, as Adam mentioned, and then the design oath as well as this podcast. So that's essentially what we are, the YDC. And Adam, I'm going to pass it to you for, explain to us what the WDO is.
Yeah, thanks, Arjit. Yeah, I think hopefully a lot of the listeners here today would have known what the World Design Organization is, but for those that don't, I'll give a little bit of context. So, the World Design Organization, or the WDO, most people refer to it as, is a global non-governmental organization that aims to promote and advance discipline of industrial design and its power to enhance the quality of life. So the actual World Design Organization wasn't founded until 1957. So as we know, industrial design is quite a young profession compared to a lot of those other longer professions rather in the world when you look at architecture, for example. So what the WDO does well is it connects designers, companies and educational institutions across the world, serving over 250 member organizations and engaging thousands of individual designers through innovative programming and initiatives that champion design for a better world, which I believe is what brought us as a YDC really together, is that we all share that.
Totally. And Adam, Arjit, and I are all team leads for the YDC. So we've got an amazing cohort that's all over the globe. You can see right now, if you're watching the video, it's dark where I am and it's sunny where Adam is, and it's great lighting where Arjit is, just because he is the best setup. But I think one really cool piece of the YDC is learning, especially as young people, how to manage and build relationships with an international team. That's a really exciting element to what we do. So, Adam, with managing an international team like the YDC, why do you think we've been so successful in creating a community over the past 2 years?
Yeah, great question. I think I think the first thing to recognize is that it is really tough. I think in the modern world we live in today, it's a very common thing. I think, especially after COVID, the use of being able to be in different places around the world and connect and work together has become more common and more understood, and finding ways of doing that has been a really interesting experience, I think, especially in our young careers, and not necessarily being exposed to that before. It's been a really cool challenge, and I think what's really benefited us as a YDC is our focus on communication and transparency. I think it's very easy to feel alone and feel very much very far away from the people you're working with when you're around all these different places in the world, like you said, even Sydney to New York and Canada. We are very far away, but we're also very close, I think, at the same time. So I think, yeah, we've just really focused on being of making sure our communication as a team is always as best as it can be, and just being transparent with each other on time zones and the rest of our lives as well, and just commitments, really. But I think it's been a great experience to see that a group of young designers can come together, working towards the same goal, with different passions and different skills, but if we can communicate well and really want to work as a team, it can happen. So yeah, it's a great fuel and a great lesson for the rest of my career in this space, I'd imagine.
Yeah. And I also want to touch on the fact that it's so funny that we all started out very professional when we all got accepted. It's like, we're with the World Design Organization. And I think I actually showed up in like a jacket, like a little sports jacket to the first meeting online. But now you guys are my friends. And even though, Arjit, even though you're in Canada and Adam is in Australia and José, who's helping us with some editing, is all the way in Italy at 2 a.m, I'm bugging you multiple times a week and sending you funny pictures and hopping on calls in my jammies and talking about life. And I think that's another really amazing element of being in this cohort, is now I have like 20 plus besties all over the planet.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have thought, 20 years ago, to get the type of network that we've now got as young designers, connected to plenty more young designers around the world, it would have been such a difficult job. You would have had to met at a conference or, cross paths in, I'm sure, many different ways. But I think what the WDO has really helped establish is this community where we've come together, and they've chosen the right type of people that we all just get on and love to work together, really. So I'm not saying it's not tough at times. I think if we're all being honest, we've all had that standing on thin ice feeling. But I think it is worth it in the end. We all, like I said, I really enjoy my time speaking with you both and the other members of the YDC, and I think that'll only benefit me the longer I go into my career as well. And so yeah, hopefully the start of something a lot longer.
Arjit, you have to say something nice now. Me and Adam have just said nice things and that you're our friend. So
For sure. I'm gonna start with saying that I'm really looking forward to hopefully us all getting together in London next year. And yeah, I guess, yeah, fingers crossed.
fingers
But if
crossed.
that, if that doesn't, let's say, happen for whatever reasons, I'm still looking forward to seeing you all. Alexis, I know you're sort of not too far away from here, but Adam, we've just gotta get you around this part of the world, or meet somewhere midway. So of course, it's been a pleasure to work with both of you and everybody else at the YDC. There's people that we speak with at all different kinds of or times of the day, and it's just such a pleasure to be able to work with people that also want to make a difference through design, right? That's, I think, been the highlight for me as part of the YDC, just sort of coming in and looking at and working on a project to create an oath for design, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seems such a big thing, but like when you come together and people start talking, sometimes people get passionate, and everybody wants to, of course, have their ideas noticed, which is a great thing, but at the same time allows all of us to really come together and think about, like, what's the best thing to move forward with for the entire group and for the world. So it's been a pleasure for sure.
Absolutely. So you keyed in on something great there, bringing it back to the kinds of projects that we're working on, Arjit. So Adam leads the festival side, Arjit leads the oath side, and those were basically our two original assignments from the launch of our cohort. We were designing a festival for design, and I believe that was supposed to be like the younger members of our cohort who were like either in school or right out of school, and then for the members of our cohort who were a little bit farther into their career, they were focusing on developing an oath for design. And those were our initial briefs. And since then, if you heard Adam say earlier in the conversation, he was kind of talking about the festival ecosystem. It sort of evolved and become some different bodies of work, one being Next in Line Design, which is why we're here today. So let's talk more about that. I'm personally passionate because I'm the project lead for Next in Line Design. So it's been really fun to get this off the ground. But I want to talk a little bit about why Next in Line Design is going to be different from the podcast that y'all are listening to right now. So as you can see, Next in Line Design has been created for young designers all over the world by a team of young designers from all over the world, which is pretty cool. So we're hoping that we can share our community with you, get you involved, feeling the good vibes. And this team of 20 or so young people who are putting the podcast together are not only representing different countries and cultures, we're also representing different disciplines of design. And while today you've gotten to know a little bit about me, Adam, and Arjit, we're going to be rotating our hosts throughout Next in Line Design. So you're going to have a chance to meet a different member of the YDC with every episode and discover their unique perspectives. Because 2 years ago today, we were total strangers working oceans apart from each other until we were all brought together through our acceptance to the YDC. When I tell you that we literally couldn't be more different, I'm not kidding. But one thing that we do have in common is a desire to change the world by doing the things that we love. We share a mission and vision to design for a better world. And we want to use this platform to introduce you to our community, to provide opportunities to highlight young designers who are creating change through their craft, and empower you to recognize your agency as a designer and your ability to change your world. So one component of the Next in Line Design podcast that I'd like to get into next with Adam and Arjit is that we're using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a foundation or sort of launching point for our content. So I want to talk a little bit about what the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals actually are. Arjit, would you mind talking a little bit more about the goals, or the SDGs as we call them?
For sure, yeah, the SDGs is something so important, yet something that I feel like not everybody around the world knows and needs to know, especially as a designer. So the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, were essentially first proposed at a global summit in Rio de Janeiro in 2012 and officially adopted in the United Nations in 2015. So there's 17 goals, and essentially they aim to create a better world by 2030. Now, is that going to happen? We're not necessarily sure, but there are steps that we're taking and steps that we're going to continue to take to get there. So while many of us may never truly get to see these goals, fully accomplished by the end of our lives, their existence and the work that many put towards them is what we work for, right? It provides a glimmer of hope for all of us. A hope for ending poverty, improving health and education, reducing inequality, driving economic growth, tackling climate change, protecting our oceans and forests. The SDGs really is a call, or are a call for all countries, right, developed and developing, to really come together and work together for a more peaceful, prosperous, and a sustainable world.
Yeah, exactly. Summed it up perfectly, Arjit. So these SDGs are just such a great launching pad for our context, or for our content when you're looking at our goal to design for a better world. And all of the members of our cohort are really interested in different things because we come from different cultural backgrounds. We have very different lives. So it's really cool to see what really strikes a chord with certain members and what might not for others. Adam and Arjit, do you guys have certain SDGs that you feel particularly passionate about or inspired to learn more about?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to learn more about them all, to be honest. I think, they're probably not spoken about enough, which is another reason why we probably started this podcast. But yeah, getting back to the point, I think, yeah, personally, I'm a real sort of advocate for equality in opportunity, and through education, etc. So I'd love to be learning how we're using the modern technologies of the world to give more people that ability. I think it's something that is the very least something that everyone should have access to, and should be and given that opportunity to learn, whether that person chooses that path or another path is up to them, but at least having the opportunity to engage in education and continue to learn and throughout life, not just the start of it, I think is the best thing that you can do in the world, really. So yeah, I'd love to learn more about that, and hopefully we'll have a podcast maybe around that topic in the near future.
I think we will. Arjit, any thoughts on the SDGs?
For sure, yeah. No, I think Adam brings up a great one, and of course, like each one that you pick, it seems like a great one, and it's such an important topic. Like all of them, every time I talk to anybody about them, it just feels like I'm more and more passionate about all of them. But really, one that I've been focused on for essentially, throughout my education as well as now is responsible consumption and production. Coming in and studying industrial design in the US was really a changing moment for me, not just because of the education that I was receiving, but also just because of the culture that I was experiencing, and really just seeing how different it is to what I was used to in India was a eye-opening moment for me, really. Just being able to be among a different culture and see how people celebrate, let's say, different festivals. Perhaps that's Christmas, now that it's coming up here close to us as well. But also other festivals, right? And just seeing how people exchange gifts and that sort of thing, and what that really means to people. So I think overall, designing products, I learned that, I want to essentially work on more meaningful products as well. And I know that there was people that were super passionate about designing for healthcare, right? Or even people that were designing for other products like shoes or something, but like making sure that they're doing the right thing when they're picking the right materials and that sort of thing. So I think responsible consumption and production for me would probably be one that I could work on for the rest of my life and still not have done enough work, I think.
No, that's awesome. That's really awesome. Personally, I am obviously very passionate about good health and well-being because that's my world right now. I work in the healthcare industry. But I know it's a little bit silly, but my favorite is actually life underwater. I feel like that's super exciting and interesting, and definitely maybe not like as noble as like I don't know. But I just find that to be very fascinating. When I was a very little girl, I wanted to be a marine biologist, so I'm super into that. But we'll be covering a lot of SDG ground through this season of the Next in Line Design podcast. I'm really, really excited about it. So thank you so much, Adam and Arjit, for providing some context about the WDO, the YDC, the SDGs. I'm really so excited our team is kicking off this initiative together.
And with almost 2 years of work already behind us, it's amazing to look back at the community that we've built and everything we've learned together. And I can't wait to share all of those insights in our podcast. But before I start wrapping up for today and hinting towards our future episodes, I want to ask you guys a couple of more fun questions so that, just your shining personalities can be showing off right now. So Adam and Arjit, what are your favorite parts of being a designer? I know we're early in career, but we've got a little bit under our belt. What is your very favorite part?
Yeah, Adam, you want to take that first?
Yeah. I think as a designer, curiosity is one of the most amazing sort of traits to have and to be able to explore that, as in the word curiosity, and really being able to dive into so many different topics and give an amazing point of view. I think I personally, as a designer, I love getting deep into topics. It's probably a bad personality trait, but once you get a sniff of anything, you dive deep into it, and I think that's just the nature of who I am. But I think that's my favorite part of being a designer, is that I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to feel naive at times. I think when I'm feeling that, I know that I'm probably looking in the right areas, because those are the areas I'm not as keyed up on. So yeah, for me, curiosity, and I think the skill to curiosity is finding ways to keep it thriving. I think it's easy to sort of to let it dwell the more you progress into your career. I mean, like you mentioned, I'm only slightly into my career really, but I'm still finding ways of trying to keep that curiosity as high as possible, and speaking to other designers that are further into their career, and and how they've managed to do it, or how they've let it slip, it maybe even at times. But yeah, I think for me, that's something I love to do with design.
I'm actually going to jump in there because you just articulated my favorite thing about being a designer. But I'm also very curious.
Yeah.
And clearly we're all very chatty. But I heard a great quote my senior year of college that's really stuck with me. And it's that being a designer is being a student of the world, and sort of like following that curiosity, and that our job and maybe our purpose as people, maybe even broader than being just a designer, is, to be a student of the world, to follow our passions, to learn, and just soak it all up like a sponge. So that was very well said, Adam. And Arjit, your favorite, sir?
For sure. Yeah, no, I think you all summed up one that I 100% I think have always known about myself is curiosity, and sometimes that troubled, I guess, the people around me, just because I had so many questions. I think we've all probably experienced that as designers, but that's really, I think, what makes us better designers as well, is just being able to ask those questions and continue to be curious. Especially like Adam was saying, when we do that, we know we're looking in the right areas, because we don't have all the answers, right? And that's exactly why we became designers, is to try to find those, right? Or to create a product that does not currently exist, right? So innovation, invention, all of that stuff. But I think another good thing that I personally really enjoy currently is, the notion that I'm able to really interact with people that are ahead of me, but also the people that are still coming into school, right? So people that I teach at George Brown, I think that's been a really nice sort of tie, because I'm able to really learn from both of those groups of people, right? There's people that have, of course, been in the industry for that many years, and they have their set ways, and you just have to sort of continue to conform to those. But then there are people coming into school sort of untouched or unscathed by the world, right? And so when you look at their perspective, it's all about, I'm going to change the world and I'm going to create the greatest product that's possible, right? So just being able to find mentors within both of those groups and mentees has been really quite the experience for me, and I think I really enjoy that. And that's not possible, I feel like, in all fields, but definitely possible in design. So yeah, I love that part about being a young designer.
I feel like you've taken a note from Owen Foster there. What's that one quote? What's that one quote that he always says? The best part about being a young designer is not knowing the rules, right? So like having that fresh perspective and like being maybe blind and deaf but very confident
Yeah,
is a really
yeah,
fun asset that we all have. Um
for sure. No, he's
amazing.
one of my mentors as well, and 100% somebody that I'm sure we're gonna hear from on this podcast,
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be a shame not to, wouldn't it? So yeah, that's gonna happen.
for
He'll
sure.
be making an appearance. We love him. Um, and he gives us lots of great advice as a mentor to all of us in the YDC. But would you guys have advice to other designers, maybe still in school or early in career around the world? Just some general advice, a piece of 2 cents, something that you've learned.
Yeah, I think, Adam, I don't know if you want to take that first, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can jump in. I think
sure, right.
I'm lucky enough, like Arjit, to speak to students in coming through university, and I think it's good for students to hear those different perspectives, from design professionals later in their careers, and design professionals like ourselves who have been through education. In a closer to when they have. I think there's lessons to be learned from both of those. But something I think that really helped me as a young designer, especially that transition from university to your first sort of industry experience or whatever you choose, is like defining your North Star, I like to call it. So for me, that making that decision of what I wanted to do when leaving university, I spent a lot of time thinking about what my North Star is, and I like to think of my North Star as 20 years ahead, or of where I am currently, and I sort of then make decisions today based on that North Star. So for me, my North Star is sort of maximizing human potential, and I know that sounds quite broad, and I made it broad for that reason, so it leaves me with more opportunities. But I think actually, if you were to think about it, quite deeply, it actually sort of takes me into a certain direction. There's quite a lot of work that you wouldn't do if that was your North Star. So it helped me really understand the type of work I wanted to do, the type of industry, and the type of skills I wanted to learn as well. So I think really understanding that makes it easier to make that first step, whether you see that coming out of university or even while you're still in university. And yeah, I think so for me, yeah, define your North Star, and that can change, but make your decisions based on that.
Wow, man. I mean, to be honest, I'm actually going to say something that's actually honestly almost opposite to that.
We love
That's
the
good. No, it's
tension.
good
Go
to hear
for it,
different
Arjit.
perspectives.
Like I love the aspect of like defining a North Star, and that it's something that I talk about with a lot of people all the time. Like currently, actually, that's something that I'm focusing on quite a bit. So I'm sort of thinking about and researching Ikigai and how you really try to find your meaning and your purpose for yourself, and what you want to do and how you want to make the money and all of that stuff too. So 100% agree with a lot of that, but at the same time, I think one of the more important aspects is resilience, and being a resilient designer. Just because coming out of school, I know that a lot of people don't actually end up with the perfect roles, right, as they envision when they're in school. So I think
Right.
yes, you might have a goal, and yes, you might have sort of this idea of what a perfect life looks like, and you might sort of start thinking, as I did, about as soon as you're going to get your first big boy job or big girl job or whatever, right? You start to think about the things that you want to get, and
That
the
paycheck
places
hits
that you
the
want to go.
bank.
Exactly, right, the places that you want to go and that sort of thing. But when reality hits and you try to understand sort of where you're going, and then you end up in your first job and perhaps you don't like that, right? It's a very different thing. It's a very different feeling, and I've spoken to a lot of people about that actually on a separate podcast that I used to host, and hopefully we'll bring back. But I think that's something that a lot of people have mentioned, is just like 5-year plans perhaps don't really work as well, right? Because yes, you can plan something for the near future, but it doesn't always fit into sort of how the world works, right? And so you might think that the perfect role exists for you, but even sometimes going into that role, you realize that it's actually not what you thought it was going to be. So just being resilient and continuing to work towards, that 20-year goal, I guess the North Star perhaps, is fine, and it's great. But sometimes, like Adam actually mentioned too, that changes as you continue to grow, right? So couple of years into the field, or a few years into, a particular job, you realize that there's actually something else that you would like to continue to do, or a different passion that you would like to follow. So just staying resilient and continuing to pick up the skills that you want to take for that North Star, and moving into that direction, I think is probably super important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just to touch on that, I think just because that is a really cool perspective, actually, that we didn't plan that we were gonna sort of look at the different ends of that. But yeah, I think where we both can agree, I think, I'm not saying we disagree, but the I think the skill nature of it, what you're talking about, and that's where,
Yeah,
like I said, when I look ahead 20 years, I get a sense of the skills that I'm going to need in that 20 years. So, like you said,
for sure.
coming out of university, you're not always going to get that perfect role. Having a
100%.
designer in your job title doesn't necessarily mean you're not a designer, or you are a designer. So, actually looking at the job for the skills you're going to gain from it instead of the job title, I think can stead you in a stronger way, into your career. And that's why, like I said, I personally look ahead 20 years and think, if that's the job I think I want to do at this time, like you said, that might change, but what are the skills that I'm going to need to develop in this time frame to be the best at that job I can be, and give myself the best
So cool.
opportunity of that. So yeah, I think that's probably where we agree, is the
Yeah,
skill focus on skill over job title. That'll
100%.
take you a lot further.
Yeah,
Hmm.
for sure.
And with a little bit of discussion about, careers and planning and goals, being a young designer is overwhelming. It is. It's a scary jump for a lot of people into a creative field. There's definitely that like dream, like Arjit said, like there's like the dream design position. And I feel like a lot of us in school are sort of coached, like, if you do well in your classes in school, you will have that, dream position, and you will be designing supercars, or whatever it is that you think would be the most glamorous job, like that will be yours. And that's really not the case for a lot of people. So I think a piece of advice that I want to leave today, especially coming from YDC, a great lesson I've learned is that comparison is the thief of joy. And by that I mean we all have extremely different paths. It's looks different for everybody because our lives are different, our backgrounds are different, the things we love are different, and the people around us shape us. So with this being said, it's a small world after all. And although it's scary out there, we have a great design community. We hope that you'll become part of our community too, as our audience. And we're really, really excited to be sharing, this bit of our lives over the past 2 years with y'all. Thank you so much, Adam and Arjit. And one very last thing, super quick though, because I know we're running out of time. If you had to pick one piece of content, so like a book, a podcast, or I guess I shouldn't call it person content, but like maybe like a person to follow, like online or to research into, what's a resource that you would recommend to other young designers?
Yeah, I'll go for that. I think Kenneth Grange, Sir Kenneth Grange, I should say, who unfortunately passed away this year. Iconic British designer, designed everything you could ever imagine. You probably got a lot of it in your households. Sir Johnny Ive and an author did a book on him. I believe it came out last year, called Kenneth Grange, Designing the Modern World. For those that don't know him or his career path or what he did throughout his career, that he did an amazing work all through his philosophy of improving people's lives through good design and making products that are useful and long lasting. I think there's a lot of lessons we can learn from him that we can apply today. So yeah, would definitely recommend reading that.
Amazing. Thanks, Adam. I think for me, it would be Articulating Design Decisions, especially for young designers, just because I think that's one book that actually is recommended for my class as well, the one that I teach currently. But it really helps you understand sort of how to defend some of the decisions. And as young designers, that's going to be super essential. Why I say that is because there's going to be a lot of times people above you or in positions that are, more powerful than you, that are going to want to make decisions that are not right, right? And so sure, that book sort of talks about the principles from a very specific maybe realm, but really looking at it from even the YDC's perspective, I think, and the this podcast perspective, I think you have to look at making the right decisions. And I think just having that skill is super important. So I'd say that's probably one book that you should definitely check out.
I think I've just had a book that's entered my to read list, I think. So by the sounds of it, that sounds up our street for sure.
Wasn't Jose trying to start a book club? I feel like we need to get that
He
rolling.
was. That was a good idea. Yeah.
That was a good
Yeah.
idea. That was a good idea.
For anyone that follows this, actually, follows the WDO on Instagram, they do a great initiative where I think they share a piece of content, a book a week, on their Instagram stories. So if anyone wants any ideas, I would definitely look into that, because I've definitely got a few from there before.
On a weekly basis, Sarah and Natalie must be like nose in the book all the time.
They do a great job of it. Yeah, I mean, if you ever need a book recommendation, they're the people to go to.
Oh, that's amazing. I didn't even know that. Thank you, Adam. That's excellent. Well, thank you, gentlemen. This has been so lovely. Audience, I hope that you've loved meeting Adam and Arjit and I today. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our first episode. Next in Line Design is a podcast for designers by young designers. We hope that you really enjoyed today's episode. We've got some really exciting conversations coming up that we can't wait to share with you. Every episode, you're going to have the chance to meet a new member of the YDC. So enjoy our rotating cast of designers, and feel free to reach out in the comments just to say hey, maybe to share some feedback, your story, or tell us more about the kind of conversations that you'd like to be hearing. In the meantime, make sure to subscribe to the WDO's channels and hit that notification bell so that you never miss an episode. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you back here soon with more of Next in Line Design. A big thank you to José Tomas Marchant for helping us with our editing today, and thanks to Adam and Arjit.